When you start the round, normally you'll throw a Molotov at the end of halls at about 141 to stop the T's from rushing. The fastest a T can get to the choke point is about 139, so the Molotov should come before then. But since the T's don't always rush, there's the option to jiggle with the Molotov and wait for contact. However, you can't do this forever because eventually T's can peek you from the right side. The fastest a T can peek halls from the bedroom side is about 137, which is 2 seconds after T's can show up on the left. So if you don't sense a rush coming, saving the Molotov for later is also an option. A slightly different way to start the round would be to go towards boiler and throw a Molotov at bedroom. You'll often want to do this when your team starts 3B to slow the T's down on the A side. With a Molotov up in bedroom, it delays a T from peeking halls because without a T in bedroom, they're now open to a CT peeking from boiler. If the T's rush halls, there's enough time to get back to balcony to hold the entrance. You might also hear the footsteps of them running on the tiles as a warning. If they decide to walk the whole way, you should expect them to arrive at the entrance around 128, so make sure you're back before then. Regardless of how you start the round, one of the most common spots to play is the balcony. The walk push mentioned before can be stopped by simply throwing a smoke down before 128. If you want to see exactly when the T's start approaching, you can use this tiny crack to spot them. Once you make contact, you can fall back and block with utility. To hold balcony without utility, one way is to try timing the peek. Here's an example where Bit peeks, then hides for a second, then peeks again, then hides. He does this over and over. And it's important to note that he's not peeking in and out with no break in between, because the idea is to hide just as the T clears the right and catch them at this moment here, when they've moved on to the next angle, which is only possible if there's enough time between each peek. Something to keep in mind is that from balcony, if you don't expose yourself to the entrance, you can only see T's on short if they hug the wall next to the site, which means to safely peek more of short from balcony, you'll need to have a smoke up. Another common position to play is the pit, as it lets you hold apartments and short at the same time. Now if you're playing behind the pit wall and the T's are coming up short to swarm the site, often you don't want to peek beyond this wall. And the reason why is because up until this point, they can focus on holding pit. But once they go past it, they're now exposed to the site where another CT could be holding. You want them to cross this line so that their attention gets split. As well, crouching behind this wall allows you to just pop your head up to spot balcony. Something to pay attention to is where you plant yourself. If you're too close to the wall, you won't be able to see the T. Placing your back to the barrel is a good reference point because you'll see the T roughly when they come out of the door frame. There's also this spot in pit. Perfecto places himself very intentionally so that he avoids nearly all the common flashbangs. The wall on his left covers him from the halls pop flash and the pit flash from short, while the wall on his right covers him from the top default flash from the apartments. If you didn't sit in this particular position in pit, this is what getting hit by the different flashes would look like. So positioning yourself to dodge these flashes can make a big difference. If a Molotov comes towards pit, something to pay attention to is where it actually lands. If the Molotov lands close to the wall, then there's a good chance there will be a slight gap you can stand at where you're only exposed to the apartments and not short. If the Molotov lands more in the center, the placement of the flames will force you to expose yourself to short. When this happens, using the truck as cover while also keeping an eye on apartments is your only move. Another position you can use is just behind the truck. This allows you to fight T's with a headshot angle where you can poke your head up and down by crouching. On top of that, you can't be seen from apartments unless the T comes all the way out, which means you can also hold for a T trying to walk out a balcony. If you have a smoking pit, often you'll want to use it for the entrance to block, but you can also use this as an opportunity to reposition and help your teammates at mid. The benefit to being at short is you can still hold the apartments if someone comes out, but now you're close enough to help fight mid. Let's talk about some options to play more aggressively. At the start of the round, you can use this slight off angle at the top of stairs where the goal is to catch T's just as they start pre-aiming the entrance of apartments. From here, you're close enough to hear if a T makes sound while jumping to the ledge of bedroom, which gives you time to reposition. If you decide to swap to the other side and hold for them, you actually have a shadow advantage. You can see them a few steps away. Instead of a Molotov at the start, you can also use a smoke. A smoke delays the T's for longer and creates an opportunity to push up close. This is useful if the T's push mid to A, giving you a chance to maintain apartments control to make the retake easier. If you have the best spawn towards mid, you can actually cross through boiler to challenge the T-side apartments. In terms of timing, you'll beat a T to the entrance if they go through second mid, but not a T that peeks from the back. If you get one of the best spawns for library, you can go for an opening kill at the bottom of stairs. With the best spawns, you'll meet the T at the bottom of stairs roughly at the same time. But another component to this fight is the fact that Ts can hear you if you're pushing up. So if you want to avoid being heard, you can start walking at about the halfway point of halls to ensure that the Ts won't know you're getting aggressive. Here's some tricks that might help you. If you're at the top of apartments, this door at the bottom of the steps is actually spammable. Each shot will do about 15 to 20 damage to the stomach. From the back of pit, there's a barrel that you can jump on to just peek over the pit wall, but what's actually important here is how the jump should be done. Normally when you jump on the barrel, you spend a slight moment in the air before landing, but if you look at the jump from Hexed, there's no air time at all. To do this, you crouch before the jump and release crouch once you're mid-air. This extends your legs and allows you to just step onto the barrel, so you can be accurate enough to shoot nearly instantly. It's a very small detail, but it does make a difference. When you're in pit, you can actually use this small gap to spot if Ts are wrapping the A site. You can see the initial cross towards the right, and you get a very clear view if they hug the wall closer to sight. From the T's perspective, it's very hard to see the CT in pit like this. That's gonna be it. If you enjoyed this video, you'll probably like watching this one too.